Welcome to Laptop Radio. Today's topic is democratizing space commerce, revolutionizing ownership and trade of space assets, and the Copernic space moon mission. We have Grant with us. Hello, Grant.
Hi, Michelle. Thanks for having me on Laptop Radio. Good to be here.
Yeah, welcome. Where are you based?
That's a tough question right now. I'm in Warsaw, Poland, where a Los Angeles headquartered venture. We operate between the US and Europe mainly.
Awesome. Tell us about your company.
My company, Copernic Space, has a long story. I guess I can start with myself. I've been doing the startup thing since I was a teenager, pretty much. Originally focused on digital media. I've been in the blockchain space for over a decade now. Previously, I co-founded and was chief marketing officer of CoinFirm. It's one of the global leading platforms around analytics for crypto and blockchain assets. But I'm third gen aerospace. This whole story behind Copernic Space starts with my grandfather, helped build a national space program in Europe and had these early works around the entire concept of democratizing access to space, really the earliest ones I know of. So this is a family legacy of mine, even to such an extent that my mother, who's known as Lady Rocket, is my co-founder in Copernic Space, the CEO role as well in that. And that's built on this value of democratizing access to space. In 2020, I saw the collision and the explosion of the new space economy ready to happen. And this collision actually with blockchain tech, it's going to be the first major economy and market that is inherently built on the ideas of tokenization and certain blockchain applications in various ways. So I left CoinFirm to launch Copernic Space in 2020. Since then, we've built a great team. We have a great group of space angels, investors, and VCs on board. And we've set some historic benchmarks and precedents around really the standards, what we call standards for tokenizing and providing commercial access to various kinds of space assets. And when I say space assets, a lot of people don't get what that means. We really classify them in two ways, what we call real world space assets. So that's like payloads in a lunar lander, which we'll be talking about here in a bit, or one that I love specifically, satellite imagery. If you can democratize access to actionable satellite imagery, you can tangibly change the world in positive ways. IP, that's another real world space asset, big opportunity in the IP world, in the space economy. And then there's financial space assets. These are actual investments into the space ventures or the space assets themselves. We're utilizing blockchain to create really the commercial and financial infrastructure for the new space economy, and then place the marketplaces on top to interact with and facilitate acquisition, exchange, trade, and utilization of these various types of space assets.
Why should we care about space?
Good question. It's unfortunately, it's too often of a question, and it's a big curve with the wider commercial and consumer market, which we can just look at history to see why we should care about space. And I'm going to start with a story of a friend of mine who was a super smart kid. Ironically, his dad worked for NASA JPL, I think. And he's like, cool stuff with space, but why don't you focus your talents, your efforts, all this on more environmental or green focused technologies? And I said, the applications you're talking about in green tech, most of them or a lot of them originate from space applications originally. Solar is a space application. Actually, space is the only place that has these sort of big systems running on such power. That's where the entire concept originates from. My bigger point to that is that the more advancements we push into what just used to be the space, whatever you wanted to call it, programs, now it's an entire economy. So the more resources and faster we push the space economy, the faster and more tangible benefits can be provided on Earth. I mentioned the satellite imagery one. If you care about climate, utilizing satellite imagery or different sensing technologies and giving better access to it is going to totally change agriculture, shipping. Yesterday, we had a conversation about monitoring mining sites, how communities can put money together to monitor mining sites around them to know if something's happening because the miners won't mention it. So I can go on and on. I'm sure you can find lists of loads of different things that were just developed for space initially, but we're just scratching the surface of what the possibilities are. Some food even grows better in space. Pharmaceuticals happening in space. The potential is limitless, and we're here to build the infrastructure for it, that foundation for it, that facilitates all these genius and amazing people to be able to build and have other people support them, whether that's as an investment or just discovery and utilizing these assets.
Awesome. When you talk about blockchain and the intersection with space, why choose blockchain and not use the older generation of technology?
I'll say this, at my past company, a coin firm, we were really focused on AML. So we worked with a lot of financial institutions and implemented, for example, it might still be the largest actual blockchain application working in banking, not just like a PR, hey, we're doing blockchain or something like
Mhm.
that. And why I'm saying this is because blockchain is an infrastructure tech. Don't
Mhm.
let what I know, whatever tokens peaking right now, whatever NFT hyped, that's surface level stuff. Blockchain is an infrastructure tech, and one of the major reasons it's not like comprehensively just in the market, and millions and millions and millions and hundreds of millions of people are using it without knowing it, for example, which I think will be the end success of blockchain in that sort of sense, is that all these other markets have those foundations, these legacy systems, massive bureaucracies and administrations on top of it when it comes to commerce and how the financial market moves with it. Space is already a $500 billion market, soon to be a trillion, but it's really young from the aspect of being its own thing, like in the private commercial world. No one's built that. Space never entered into it matured after the digital commerce revolution. It's
Yeah.
not e-commercey at all whatsoever. And so the unique opportunity with space is that here you have a big market, going to be massive and super important, and the opportunity exists to install blockchain from its foundation and build its rules based off that versus all these other markets that already have those foundations in them.
Awesome. Let's talk about some of the disruptive innovation that you are bringing to the space industry. What are some of them?
One thing we're really focused on right now is our own moon mission. We, for years, have worked with various leading space lunar focused companies on creating the standard of how to tokenize, provide commercial access, and create lunar assets, having the capability to send, buy, trade, ownership of assets on the lunar surface. But we got the opportunity to invest our own money, acquire our own payloads, and launch our own mission and really the first lunar asset sale ever. So right now we've opened up our payload to enable first what we call our passport holders. These are like paid members of our platform who have privileged in terms and pricing and access. First
Mhm.
them, and then some of our partners, and now we're opening it up even wider to the wider commercial and consumer market to be able to access the lunar surface for the first time, and not only be able to access it, send their assets, in this case digital ones, but to utilize that standard we built to tokenize these assets as verifiable ownership of their assets on the lunar surface, which can then be utilized, traded, etc., on Earth. Whatever the payload is, whether it's sequence DNA, which is a real thing we have, or company registration documents, or some sort of code, applications, memes, music, whatever it may be, it's
Mhm.
more about the system that we're creating, which is the foundation for how this market is going to work. And in this case, we're enabling people to have access to the moon unlike ever before.
Awesome.
That's one of them. And there's a bunch of others, but I'll leave it at that.
Okay, what you just said means that if I wanted to purchase a bottle of sand from the moon, I can get it and it will be tokenized.
For example, right now, what we're doing, that's like the end result. What we're doing right now is we're enabling people to decide what they want to send up.
Hmm.
Right now, we're doing it digitally. We're enabling people to send the examples that I gave earlier, for example. First, we're providing them access to our payload, being able to send their assets to the moon. Then our platform tokenizes those assets and gives them verifiable ownership of those assets. And then they can choose what to do with those assets, trade it further on the marketplace on our platform, for example. So yes, technically, if someone sends something to the moon, and decided to sell it further on our marketplace, you would be able to buy ownership and trade it further.
Awesome. What is the role of tokenization? Why do we want to tokenize space?
That's a question that can touch on a few different points. For us, we needed to create a vehicle with certain features, functions, rights for space assets. We needed to give it a format for an actual asset. And tokenization is amazing with that because most people think of tokenization as just I'm creating a unique digital representation of this thing. But really, you can go quite far with tokenization, just like what we're planning with what we call our data standard, which can apply to various different types of digital focused space assets. But in this case, let's talk about satellite imagery again. I could have a user come on Copernic Space, say, hey, I want, let's say they just buy a satellite imagery license. It works for a year. You get access to this database or these data sets under these terms. They're acquiring that license through a token, and that token actually serves as the unique key and secure access into that data set under those terms. But then I can trade that license further. Let's say I only use 6 months of it. Let me trade the other 6 months of that license if the original asset creator allows such things. There's a reason why crypto and blockchain has been so hyped outside the speculative thing, and why serious kind of infrastructure thinking people can take it seriously is because it's a new way to build an economic system, model marketplaces and assets. And in this case, for space, it's a perfect vehicle for these sensitive types of assets.
My next question centered around being inclusive or inclusion.
Mhm.
I see the Earth as one people, even though there's different countries and people have different pigmentation. So as one people, and there might be other planets out there or different worlds that we haven't known yet. How are you allowing this to be more inclusive and more accessible to more people?
The inclusion thing with space is interesting because space is like the most inclusive human thing almost in an like an innate way. You could argue even more so than, let's say, music, because you could be like, I don't like country or something like that. Like space is a great unifier. Yes, national governments, we're going to see what China and the US are going to start doing to each other in space or on the moon, etc. But you don't meet someone where it's like, what do you think about space? And they're like, man, I hate space. They might have a negative opinion of Musk, or they might dislike Bezos or something like that. But there's something really in the core of us about space. So I think space is the great unifier. With us, it sits in our core values. What started 3 generations ago, if you want the real story, if you want inclusion, let's start with my grandfather. My grandfather was stuck behind the Iron Curtain. He built the first Polish national space program, sent an astronaut up. But he was a more, let's say, progressive, capitalistic minded guy. And these ideas of democratization of access to space, the space economy wasn't a thing back then, really. But this whole idea of democratization of access for him was about democratization of access to resources, knowledge, talent, things his students, because he was also a professor at the academy. It comes from a point where that whole thing isn't just like a buzzword, where it's we know that providing people as much equal access as possible to the space economy to have empowerment and actual ownership. That's why you'll keep hearing me use the term ownership. And the space economy is vitally important because we don't want it to be an extremely centralized, monopolistic space. And space provides humanity another opportunity to start over in a way. I think what's happening in space is the discovery of the new world in a way, the revolution it can provide. So for us as a company, it sits in our core values. Our team represents that. And I can talk about our philanthropic initiatives and the Lady Rocket Foundation and stuff like that, but it's a core value of ours.
How does advancing space commerce make our life on Earth better?
Yeah, I'll talk about the more philanthropic sort of stuff. We have an initiative. It's a long-term initiative, but we've already done some cool stuff around it called Satellite Rhino. This started as a collaboration with Saving the Survivors, their premier organization in South Africa that protects endangered rhinos, especially from poaching, but also just general needs, etc. And for us, it was about, okay, how do we push the capability for organizations that are doing good like that to be able to have better access to actionable satellite imagery based reporting, better awareness, better monitoring? Because an organization like this is really doing it manually across massive amounts of land. Tracking these things outside of GPS isn't working. That's just one kind of very close to heart example, depending on what type of person you are, of how that can create tangible effect for even a singular organization on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing for what I mentioned around mining earlier, enabling communities themselves to protect themselves as
Mm-hmm.
well. There's all this focus on ESG, et cetera. So you can utilize it for that. A lot of pharmaceutical work is going to be going on in space. I mentioned the plants thing. I wasn't joking about that. There's going to be a lot of research that's done in space because space provides unique environment for that research that's going to provide lots of benefits here on Earth. And there's also the element of economic empowerment. What we witnessed with kind of the crypto market boom, eventually that's going to look small compared to the overall space boom. But cool enough, crypto will play an important, but maybe a little bit more in the background role in the space economy through a platform like ours.
Awesome. I wanted to talk a little bit about sustainability, energy, and space. How do you see that evolving?
There's a few concerns with that, but space provides more solutions than it provides concerns. We touched about a little with the solar stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to probably end it with a pretty far out there example. People will say, okay, rocket launch, that is putting up loads of emissions up in the air. I can't argue with that. I don't know the stats well enough. I'm sure there's some sort of stats that make some sort of comparison that make it seem like it's not so much, but I don't have that off the top of my head. The other one is space debris.
Mm-hmm.
We're launching all this stuff into space at a scale we've never launched it before. There's stuff that's been there for a while. We've seen a bunch of incidences the past few years of just stuff coming out of nowhere and creating havoc. There's that sustainability aspect, which I think is very interesting. Steve Wozniak created a space startup recently called Privateer,
Mm-hmm.
that's particularly focused on data around space debris. For us, our approach is to provide the tool, the platform, and the commercial models or the financing models that incentivize the solutions for that sort of issue. Because there's lots of technologies or lots of things that can be done, but just the model to incentivize it going further or implementing it are not yet there. Like, what is the economic model for some entity to go around and collect trash in orbit? Who's going to pay that? Is that going to be another tax that governments put on the taxpayer for sending their satellites 30 years ago or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
So this is the fascinating thing about the space economy and the amazing opportunity and how important it is. You heard what I just said. It involves massive geopolitics. Musk became a geopolitical player through Starlink almost overnight, and that's the power behind these sort of space assets. Back to the sustainability thing. Once again, space itself, once you're in space, is quite self-sustainable. You are going to see something like who and how are the gas stations of space going to work? These are all the things that need to be explored further. I guess, the sustainability thing is right now is, okay, what materials is it using to create all these rockets and all these different sort of things that we're using here on Earth? The funny thing, the solution for that long term is mining in space, ironically, right?
Yeah.
The funny thing is with a lot of these problems around sustainability, et cetera, space actually ends up being the end solution with a lot of them. And my guess is that the amazing energy and propulsion revolution that's going to maybe enable us to not have to use fossil fuels or something like that in that sort of degree is probably going to come out of the space economy as well. So
Mm-hmm.
I'll leave it on the funniest note. We have an internal fun R&D project we're working on just to explore mining crypto in space utilizing solar, because solar works in space very well. It doesn't work on Earth very well.
Awesome.
Just fun little stuff like that even.
Awesome. Is there anything you wanted to share that I have not asked you?
Yeah, I'd be like a selfless promoter and plug my Twitters and LinkedIns and come and holler about the moon mission, because really our thing is to democratize it, get as many valuable organizations, people, individuals. We have a lot of charitable stuff going up as well.
Brent, what is
So
your Twitter account?
at Copernic Space, Copernic space.
Okay, awesome.
Thank
And
you.
how do people
Yeah, good,
contact you?
good marketing mind there. I didn't remember to say what the handle was.
How do people find you, Grant?
Follow us, Copernic Space, whatever your medium is. Twitter and LinkedIn mainly for us. We have awesome X spaces a couple times a week. I did one today. Lady Rocket, my mother and co-founder, has her own every Wednesday. If you're going to Davos, I'll be in Davos next week. If you're going to CES, Lady Rocket's there starting later today. And if you're in NYC, I'll see you speaking at NFT NYC in April. So we're very
Awesome.
accessible. We have a Discord too. Chat to us. It's very community driven as well.
Awesome. And what is one piece of advice that you have for the community?
Since this is going to be airing in the town I was conceived in, Palo Alto, I would love to inspire all the young and all the seniors as well, all my elders, to not give up. First off, perseverance is the biggest thing to success. What we're doing here at Copernic Space is not the easiest mission. Being a pioneer in a certain way isn't easy as a company, but the market's moving our way. That's what you get for that perseverance. And for space people, if you have a space company, you're an entrepreneur trying to do something in space, it's not just for rocket scientists. Space right now is open to anyone. It's an amazing time to plant your flag. Think if you could be around crypto in 2010, 11 or something like that. Now's the time to really plant your flag in the space economy as it's going to boom. And if you are trying to shoot things into space or anything like that, just get it into space. Just do it. I'm serious. It's a big validator, and that's the only way you can take that big leap forward if that's one of your goals. We're proving that with this moon mission and lunar asset sale. We onboard other space companies. They tokenize their assets, and we help market and sell their assets. This time we're like, let's take it in our own hands and do it ourselves. And it's been a very good decision.
Awesome. Thank you, Grant.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thanks for having me, and look forward to doing it again. Maybe we'll do a post moon mission one, moon mission edition.
That will be super fun. I'm
Awesome. Well,
actually excited.
I hope to be able to take something of yours to the moon. You're around the gaming environment, etc. I'd love to have some more gaming stuff. I think we have
Yeah, I'll put something of mine in the moon. I love the moon.
Come on, the first lunar gaming asset. Let's do it.
I'll actually make it and send it to you.
Please do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.